Hi everyone, Mrs. Bundy here, and yes, we have a recording for our lesson today. You are welcome to stay in the classroom while you go through this play pause it, but please make sure that you watch the video all the way to the end so you get your assignment and your exit ticket password. So the bell ringer that I had for you today is to watch a video on how to multiply decimals using a model. I am going to try to link that in the play pause it, but if it doesn't work, here's how you multiply decimals using a model. In our first hundreds grid, you can see that there are some shapes shaded in yellow. Okay, so these shapes here, those 3 rows are shaded in yellow. And that is what represents our 0.3. Remember that 0.3 equals 3/10. So 3 rows of 10, that equals that 0.3. And then you'll notice that we have 5 rows shaded in on the bottom, and that is how our 0.5 is represented, or 5/10, 5 rows of 10. Now, when you are multiplying decimals, you take the area where they overlap. Okay, so this green section in here is where they overlap, and that is your answer. You can see where they, we have 2 of those rows left here. We have 1 full row of green and 1 half row of green. And so our answer on this one is B, 0.15. We have 15/10, or 15/100, sorry, 15/100 for our answer. If you're able to watch that video, it's pretty neat how you can see multiplying decimals in a model form. Okay, and our objectives for today are I can multiply multi-digit decimals, and I can solve word problems involving multi-digit decimals. Remember down here at the bottom by our state of Utah sign, those are our Utah state standards, and we are still working on fluently adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing multi-digit decimals using the standard algorithm for each operation. And today we're working on multiplying those decimals. All right, so for lesson 3.06, I want you to think about how to create our own steps for multiplying decimals. And there's something that I want you to do, okay? I want you to grab your calculator. Once we start working on actually multiplying decimals and you have to take quizzes and things like that, you won't be able to use your calculator. But I want you to see what happens with these decimal places when we're using our calculator. So go ahead and grab it. And then I want you to type in this first problem. 1,168 times 24. And you should come up with this answer. 28,032. All right, so now we're going to add decimals in with those same numbers, okay? So in your calculator, go ahead and type in 11.68 times 2.4. All right, what do you notice about the number that you get? Okay, well, I notice a couple things. All of the numbers are the same. 28032, 28032. All of our numbers are exactly the same. This one over here on the right just has a decimal point. Okay, now I also want you to look here where the decimal point is in this problem. We have 2 decimals to the right of our decimal point. And in 2.4, we have 1 decimal to the right of our decimal point. And in our answer, we have 3 decimal points to the right of our decimal point. Does that make you think of anything? Anything that might help us out when we are looking at steps for multiplication? All right. Now I want you to do a third problem in your calculator. This one. 25.35 times 0.12. What do you notice about your answer now? Look at how many places I have to the right of my decimal point. 2 places here, 2 places here, but look how far that decimal point is over in my answer. There are 4 numbers to the right of my decimal point in my answer. We are definitely not lining up our decimal points, are we? See this here? These are not lined up. These are not lined up. These are not lined up. So that, thankfully, I know for some of you, you didn't love that Bubble Guppy song. Lining up decimals is only in adding and subtracting. When we get to multiplication, there's another method that we have to use. Have you thought of what it could be yet? We're going to talk about it here in just a minute. Okay, so here are our steps for multiplying decimals. You may want to pause this and write down the steps as we go through it. Now, one of the things that you might have noticed on those previous problems is that when you type those problems into your calculator, they came out with the same numbers as if we didn't have decimals in there at all. So our first step, these first two go together. We are going to multiply those decimals just like you do whole numbers. You're going to line up the numbers, not the decimals this time, okay? It's like we're just pretending that those decimals are not there for a minute while we multiply, okay? So you line up the numbers just like you're going to do the whole numbers. And then you multiply and you add your products. Okay, so let's have a look at what that might look like. Okay, down here we have our decimals and we've lined up the numbers. In this case, our decimals, they do line up too. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. But we're going to line up our numbers. Now, we multiplied, this step right here, we multiplied our 8 times 7, 8 times 7, 8 times 3. That's how we got this top row of numbers. And then we put a placeholder 0 on the second row, and then we multiply our 2 times 7, 2 times 7, 2 times 3. Okay? This is where we're going to add the products. That's what that means. Okay? Now, we're going to have a look at this last step, and this last step tells us how we put the decimal point in our answer. Okay, I'm going to read this and then we're going to explain it a little bit. Place the decimal point in the answer by starting at the right and moving a number of places equal to the sum of the decimals in both numbers multiplied. Whew, that sounds a little wordy, so let's have a look at what that means. If we look at our first number here, 37.7, that has 1 decimal place. See that? 1 decimal place, 1 number to the right of the decimal. And then if we look at our second number being multiplied, 2.8, there's also 1 decimal place. Only 1 number is to the right of that decimal point. Okay, so what that means is that we are going to add those together. We have 1 decimal place plus 1 decimal place. Okay, we have our 1 here and our 1 here. We're going to add those together. And that means we are going to move 2 decimal places over in our answer. 1, 2. Okay, since we have 1 decimal place in the top number, 1 decimal place in the bottom number being multiplied, we have 2 decimal places in our answer. So let's have a look at how this will look step by step. Okay, so I have 5.67 times 1.2. This is where we need to put away our calculators. No calculators when we are multiplying our decimals. Okay, so step 1 says that we need to line up the numbers, not the decimals, okay? So I have 5.67 multiplied by 1.2. See how my decimals are not lined up? My decimals are definitely not lined up, are they? But this is how we have to line them up. Numbers as far to the right as they can go, because we also don't want to line up our numbers like this. We have 5.67, 1.2. We can't line up our numbers to the left. We have to line up our numbers to the right, just like we would do a normal multiplication problem. So this one over here is incorrect. We have to line them up on the left side. All right, so that is step number 1 done. Step number 2 tells us that we need to multiply and that we can forget about our decimals for now. So we're just going to multiply like normal, starting from the right. With our farthest right number on the bottom, we're going to take 2 times 7, and that gives me 14. So I'm going to leave my 4, carry my 1. Then I'm going to multiply 2 times 6. That's 12, plus the 1 up top. So I have 13. Leave my 3, carry the 1. And then I do 2 times 5. That's 10 plus the extra 1. So I have 1134. Now I'm going to grab a different color for my next row. Remember that when we go to our next number over, I have to put a 0. Don't forget that 0. It's very important. That means that we're moving over into a different place value. So we have to include that 0. So now I'm going to take 1 times 7. That is 7. 1 times 6. That is 6. And 1 times 5. And that is 5. Okay, and then we're going to add our products. So 4 plus 0 is 4. 7 plus 3 is 10, so I leave the 0, carry the 1. 6 plus 1 is 7, plus 1 is 8, and 5 plus 1 is 6. So right now, I have an answer of 6,804. But we know that that cannot be the right answer. If we are multiplying 5 by 1, we're not going to get 6,000, are we? Okay, so now step number 3 tells us that we need to place the decimal in the product. So pay attention. We have to come back up here to our original problem. Okay, we're going to look at the numbers that we multiplied together, and we have to count how many decimal places are in each number. So I will start with the first one, and here I have 1, 2 decimal places. Okay, there are 2 numbers to the right of the decimal. And in my second number, 1.2, there is 1 decimal place because there is only 1 number to the right of my decimal. Now, we have to take these numbers, we're going to add them together, so we get 3, and that is how many decimal places we need to put in our answer. So starting from the right-hand side, I'm going to count over 1, 2, 3 places, and I am going to put my decimal point here in my answer. I have to have 3 numbers to the right of my decimal. Okay, so now we have to check for reasonableness. 5.67 times 1.2. Is it reasonable to say that my answer could be 6.804? I think it is. If we had that decimal place in any other spot, if it was 68.04, that does not make sense. If it was 680.4, that does not make sense. So always check your answer for reasonableness. Okay, so it is your turn. I want you to go ahead and try this problem. No calculator. 0.58 times 4. This one's a little bit tricky. I want to see what you can do. Pause the video, answer the question, and then we're going to come back and talk about how to solve it. Okay, so let's have a look here. We have our numbers lined up to the right-hand side. Our decimals are not in line, and that's because number 4, it doesn't have a decimal, okay? Remember that if we were to turn a whole number into a decimal, our decimal would be right there to the right side of it, 4.0. But we don't need to have that decimal there, okay? All right, so we are just going to line those up and we are going to multiply like normal. So let's go ahead. 4 times 8 is 32. Leave the 2, carry the 3. 4 times 5 is 20, plus that 3 is 23. So we're going to leave the 3, carry the 2. And here we have 4 times 0, which is 0. But we can't forget about that 2. We're adding that 2, so we're going to keep that 2 there. Okay? We don't have another number to multiply by, so we don't have any products to add together. That's our answer, 232. But if you look at the numbers that we're multiplying together, our factors, 0.58 times 4, that doesn't make sense to have 232 be our answer. We have to look at where to place our decimal point. Okay, so let's count and see how many decimal places we have in each of our numbers. 1, 2 in the top number, and 0 in 4, right? There are no numbers to the left of the decimal point. No numbers there, so that's 0. So we're going to add those together. We get 2 decimal places in our number, and we are left with 2.32. Hopefully that matches the answer that you put in before. Now I want you to try another one on your own. We have 2.5 times 0.3. Go ahead, figure it out on your own, on your scratch paper. No calculators allowed. Solve the problem, answer the question, and then we'll come back and talk about it. Okay, so let's have a look at what we do here. Our numbers are aligned. We have lined up our numbers to the right, 2.5, 0.3. In this case, our decimals do line up, and that's okay. So now we have to multiply. So let's go ahead and just start multiplying. 3 times 5, 15, leave the 5, carry the 1. 2 times 3 is 6, plus 1 is 7. Okay, we do have to look at our 0 here, though it's not going to make a whole lot of difference. So we have a placeholder of 0, but look what happens when we multiply that 0 out. 0 times 5, 0. 0 times 2, 0. So really, that second row doesn't change our answer at all, but you always want to make sure that you do all the numbers that you have listed there. So we'll add those together, and we get an answer of 75, okay? 75. If I'm multiplying 2.5 by 0.3, is it reasonable to have an answer of 75? No, right? 2.5 would have to be multiplied by a lot more than 0.3 to get it to equal 75. So let's count how many decimal places we have in our factors. So we're just looking at our factors, our top factors, the numbers that we multiplied together to get the answer, and we need to count how many decimal places we have. Okay, in the top one, we have 1. There's only one number to the right of that decimal. And in our second one, 0.3, we have 1. There's only one number to the right of the decimal. Add those together, we get 2 decimal places. So that's how much we're going to move our decimal point to the left in our answer. So remember, you start at the far right and count 2 places to the left and we place our decimal point there. Remember, it's very important. You always have to start at the far right of your number when you're putting those decimal points in. Okay, look at how different our number would be if we started at the left and put our decimal point in. If we started here and went 1, 2, our answer would still be 75, and that is not reasonable. Okay, so make sure that you start at the far right and you move in your decimal places to the left, and we come up with 0.75. A little joke break for you here before you go off to take your quiz and do your iReady work. What is Frankenstein's favorite dance song? See if you know the answer. And Frankenstein's favorite dance song is the Monster Mash. If you haven't heard it, look it up. It's a good Halloween song. Okay, and your work time today you can complete after you have finished the entire recording, but OMS workers, you will be taking the 3.06 quiz on multiplying decimals. iReady workers, you will be doing 15 minutes in iReady Math. After today, you should meet your 60 minutes this week. So make sure that you have done all of your time. Check your time. Make sure that you have all of your time for iReady this week. Also, just a reminder about the 6th grade outing. It is next Thursday, a week from today, October 12th from 12 to 2 o'clock p.m. This link is not live, but I will be sending that out in an email, and I will have that on our class announcements. If you plan to come, please let us know by filling out that survey. Also, our first interim checkpoint is coming up on Monday. This is a required test for all students. Doesn't matter what group you are in, regardless of whether you are an iReady worker, an OMS worker, an asynchronous student, all students take the interim checkpoints. It is in iReady. We will be taking it on Monday in class, so make sure that you're there on time. And you can review for this quiz by watching the recordings that I will send out in an email from our small group classes that I've done the last 2 days, okay? So please be watching for that. It probably will have already been sent to you by the time you're watching this recording. They are tough questions, so please have a look at that recording. Both of those recordings. We're going over dividing fractions, greatest common factor, least common multiple, and the distributive property. And always remember, we are going to have a prize drawing for everyone who completes their quiz on Monday. If you finish it on Monday, you'll be put into the drawing. All right, just a reminder of what's due today. OMS workers, that 3.06 quiz. iReady workers, finish out your 60 minutes for the week. Remember that everybody can get 5 points of extra credit by doing an extra 30 minutes in iReady. So OMS workers, iReady workers, asynchronous students, 30 minutes extra of iReady will give you 5 points of extra credit. And everybody needs to do the exit ticket, 10.5 exit ticket today. And here is that password for you. The password today is product. Make sure you go and take that little 1-question quiz so I know that you watched the video today and that you were participating by doing our Play Pause It. Thank you for your hard work. If you have questions about multiplying decimals, please come and see me today in tutor time at 1 o'clock. It is an optional class, but open to everybody for anybody who needs help or have questions answered. So thank you very much. I hope you have a wonderful day. Remember, one last note, remember, no live class tomorrow. I will be sending out the study hall survey in an email, and I want you to check your grades just like we do every Friday and work on anything that you need to get caught up in. We want to hit our goal of 100% passing by the end of the quarter, which is October 26th is the last day of the quarter. So make sure that you're working hard. Let me know if you need any help getting caught up. Thanks, everybody. See ya.